Welcome back to Andy and Anna Talks, where we take on the big questions of modern life with curiosity and clarity. And today, we're diving into a question that I think pretty much everyone wrestles with at some point. How do you find your purpose?
Oh, yeah. It's that really fundamental human itch, isn't it? That feeling of wanting your life to, mean something, to have a direction that feels right for you.
Absolutely. And whether you're feeling like you're just, I don't know, going through the motions, or maybe wondering if you're on the right track, or even just suspecting you're capable of more, that question of purpose can feel, well, pretty weighty.
It's almost become this kind of mythical quest, hasn't it? This holy grail idea
Yeah.
that once you find your purpose, boom, life suddenly clicks and everything is perfectly aligned.
Right, like flipping a switch and suddenly you got all the answers. But the reality is often a lot more nuanced than that. So let's really dig in today. What do we even mean when we talk about purpose? And, why does finding it sometimes feel like searching for a lost sock in a mountain of laundry?
Huh. That's a great place to start because purpose, yeah, it can sound a bit lofty, but stripped down, I think it's really that internal sense of direction, a feeling that your life has meaning, maybe, and
Yeah.
that what you do contributes to something bigger than just your immediate needs.
So like an internal compass, you mentioned that before, something that reflects who you really are, your core identity,
Right.
what you truly value, and how you want to contribute maybe to the world around you. It's less about a specific job title.
Definitely. It's more about the underlying why, the why behind whatever it is you do. You could be a teacher or a writer or a coder. The purpose isn't the job itself necessarily. It's maybe the desire to, say, empower others or share stories that connect people or build tools that make life easier.
Exactly. And I think a big hurdle for people is this idea that purpose is this one singular, like earth-shattering calling
Huh?
that you either discover in some kind of blinding flash or, you've somehow failed if you haven't.
Yeah. When in reality, I think for many, many people, purpose isn't a thunderbolt. It's more of a slow burn, something that develops over time as you learn more about yourself and the world.
Okay, so if it's often this slow burn, why does it feel like such an uphill battle for so many of us, especially now in the modern world?
Well, I mean, just think about the sheer volume of choices we face every day. That paradox of choice thing, it's very real. Our grandparents, their generations were often really focused on survival,
Yeah.
stability, basic needs first.
Right. They weren't necessarily asking, what is my deepest calling? It was more, okay, how can I provide for my family?
Exactly. And then you throw social media into the mix.
Yeah.
We're just bombarded with these curated feeds.
Right.
Everyone seems to have it all figured out, living these incredibly passionate, purposeful lives, or that's how it looks.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to fall into that trap, the social comparison thing. And then you start wondering why your own journey doesn't look like that highlight reel.
hmm And that constant exposure, it can definitely fuel those feelings of inadequacy, like you're somehow behind if you haven't found your thing yet.
Yeah, definitely.
And here's another big one, I think. Our education system. It's largely geared towards, achievement in specific subjects, getting good grades, landing a good job. There isn't much formal guidance, really, on exploring your inner landscape, figuring out what truly resonates with you.
Yeah, we're sort of trained to climb the ladder of success, right? But not necessarily to check if the ladder is leaning against the right building for us. So we chase those external markers, the job title, the salary, hoping that success will somehow just magically morph into a sense of purpose.
And it often doesn't, does it? You can achieve a whole lot by conventional standards and still feel this underlying sense of, I don't know, emptiness, something missing.
Which brings us nicely to some of the common misconceptions about purpose. Maybe we can bust a few of those myths.
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it. Myth number one. The idea that you have only one singular purpose, this notion that you're destined for one specific thing, and that's it, forever.
But life isn't like that. It's fluid, right? We change. Our interests evolve. What gives your life meaning when you're, say, 20 might be very different when you're 40 or 50. Purpose can be seasonal, maybe.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Think of it like a gardener. They have different purposes for their garden in spring, summer, fall. Each season has its own focus, its own meaning.
Okay. Myth number two. Purpose has to be something huge, something grand or world-changing. We put this enormous pressure on ourselves, don't we, to have some massive visible impact.
Mm-hmm. But really, purpose can often be found in the small, everyday things, raising kind children, creating a supportive community around you, or just bringing a bit of beauty into the world through art or music, or even just tending a small garden. A consistent act of kindness can be deeply purposeful.
It's that ripple effect idea, isn't it? A
Mm.
seemingly small act can have a much larger impact than we realize. Okay, and finally, myth number 3. Finding your purpose will make life easy.
Ah, if only. Wouldn't that be nice? No, purpose doesn't eliminate challenges or difficulties, not at all. What it does do, I think, is provide that why, the reason that makes those challenges feel worthwhile. It gives you the resilience, maybe, to keep going when things get tough.
Okay, so if finding purpose isn't about suddenly having an easy life,
Yeah.
how do we actually know if we're, on a path that aligns with our purpose? What are some of the signs?
Well, when you're feeling aligned, you might notice that even hard work feels energizing, not draining. You get lost in what you're doing. You
Hmm.
experience that state of flow where time just seems to disappear. And there's usually a deep sense of meaning that goes beyond any external rewards, like, praise or money.
Right, it's that intrinsic motivation feeling. You're
Yeah.
doing it because it actually matters to you, not just for the paycheck or the pat on the back. And what about the flip side? What are the signs that you might be misaligned, out of sync?
Chronic boredom is a big one, I think. Also, brain out, that feeling of being completely depleted, even if you're technically busy. And that underlying nagging feeling of what's the point?
Despite all your efforts, it just feels a bit pointless.
Yeah, like you're running hard on a treadmill, you're expending a lot of energy, but you're not actually getting anywhere that feels meaningful to you.
Yeah.
And it'll be subtle sometimes, can it? Just that quiet whisper of disconnection, like something's not quite right.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about what purpose kind of is, why it's tricky, some myths. Let's get practical now. If someone listening right now feels lost, just completely unsure, where do they even begin to find their purpose? For real.
Okay, first thing I'd suggest, get really curious about your energy. Pay attention. What activities truly engage you? What makes you feel most alive? And I don't just mean momentarily happy, but like genuinely engaged and energized. Yeah, and think broadly here. It could be something like the satisfaction you get from finally cracking a complex problem,
Hmm.
or that focused energy you feel when you're organizing a chaotic space. Or maybe the joy of teaching someone a new skill, or even just the lightness that comes from making people laugh. Really notice those moments.
Okay, second thing. Reflect on your pain. Now, this might sound a bit counterintuitive,
Hmm.
but often our deepest sense of purpose can actually emerge from the things that have been most difficult in our own lives.
Hmm.
Like, what injustices really get under your skin? What are the struggles you've faced that you wouldn't wish on anyone else?
That's such a powerful point. When you've navigated a real hardship and come out the other side, you often develop this deep empathy, right? And maybe a desire to help others who are facing similar challenges. Your purpose can absolutely be rooted in that desire to alleviate suffering or prevent others from going through what you did.
Okay, third point. Listen to the compliments you receive. Seriously, what do people consistently thank you for? What talents or qualities do they seem to recognize in you that maybe you just take for granted?
Mm-hmm. It's true, isn't it? Sometimes other people can see our strengths and our natural inclinations much more clearly than we see them ourselves. Those repeated compliments, those observations from others, they can be really valuable clues about where your natural gifts lie and how you might use them purposefully.
And finally, number 4, experiment. You really can't just think your way into purpose. You have to try things out. Volunteer for a cause you think you might care about. Take that pottery class you've been eyeing. Start that small side project you've been mulling over.
Exactly. Purpose often reveals itself through action, through doing. You might try something and realize, nope, this isn't for me. And guess what? That's valuable information too. It helps you narrow things down, figure out what does resonate.
Now, digging a bit deeper,
Mhm.
underneath all of this, there's a really important foundational layer, isn't there? Your values.
Yes, absolutely. Values are like the rudder, maybe. The rudder that steers your purpose. They are your core principles, the things that truly matter most to you in life.
Things like connection or justice, creativity, maybe honesty, learning, freedom, growth. The list goes on, really.
And when your actions and ultimately your purpose align with those core values, even the mundane tasks can start to feel more meaningful because you know you're operating in a way that's congruent with who you are deep down.
But on the flip side, when your work or your activities constantly violate your core values,
Yeah.
that's when you can really experience that sense of emptiness we talked about earlier, even if you're outwardly successful.
Yeah, that dissonance is draining.
Okay, let's address something I think is a really common anxiety, the fear of never finding your purpose.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's listening and just thinking, what if this just never clicks for me? What if I never find it? Yeah, that's a totally understandable fear. But I'd encourage you to try and reframe this idea of finding purpose. It's maybe not like discovering some hidden treasure that was always just sitting there waiting. It's perhaps more about actively cultivating it, growing into your purpose over time.
I like that. It's less about reaching some fixed destination, like, okay, found it, done, and more about nurturing a relationship, right? A relationship with yourself, with your work, with the world around you, and that relationship evolves as you evolve.
Exactly. And also remember that in some seasons of life, your primary purpose might simply be survival. It might be getting through a really difficult time or focusing on healing or just allowing yourself to rest. That is still incredibly meaningful and valid. It's not always about grand achievements or constant striving.
That's so important to hear. And sometimes you only really recognize a particular phase of your life as purposeful when you look back on it. You connect the dots in retrospect.
Absolutely. So it's really okay to feel lost sometimes. Purpose doesn't demand constant certainty, not at all. It requires curiosity, I think, and a willingness to explore, and just taking those small steps forward, even when you're not entirely sure where they'll lead.
So, what are some practical tools or maybe practices that can help support people on this ongoing journey? What helped along the way?
Well, journaling is a really powerful one. Asking yourself those kinds of probing questions we mentioned, like, what did I genuinely love doing as a kid before anyone told me what I should like? What activities make me completely lose track of time now? What situations or injustices really evoke a strong emotional response in me? Writing it down helps.
And creating moments of silence and space in your day. That seems crucial too. It's just so hard to hear that inner voice, that intuition, when you're constantly bombarded by external noise and distractions.
Definitely. And therapy or coaching can also be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have patterns or limiting beliefs or past experiences that are kind of obscuring our sense of purpose. Talking to a trained professional can offer really valuable perspective and help clear some of that away.
Yeah, getting an outside perspective. And mentorship too, connecting with people who are maybe a bit further along in their own journeys, people who are living lives that you find inspiring in some way, that can provide so much guidance and encouragement. Just seeing it's possible.
So if you're listening and you're still feeling unsure about your purpose after this whole discussion, please know that that is absolutely okay.
You are definitely not alone and you are not behind. The very fact that you're even engaging with this question, thinking about it, means you're already in that process of becoming.
Yeah. Purpose isn't some static endpoint you arrive at. It's
Yeah.
much more like a direction, a compass bearing. It's a daily choice, really, to try and align your actions with what feels authentic and meaningful to you right now.
And some days that might look like, offering a helping hand to someone who needs it. Other days it might be pouring your energy into a creative project you care about. And sometimes, honestly, it's simply persevering through a tough day with integrity and kindness. That's purpose too.
So be kind to yourself through this process. Stay curious and just keep taking those small, manageable steps.
Because chances are, the next step you take, however small, will likely reveal the next clue on your path.
Thanks for being with us on Andy and Anna Talks. We'll see you next time.